All right, let's be real. Frozen pizza is the ultimate lifesaver. Late night cravings? Frozen pizza. Too lazy to cook? Frozen pizza. Questionable life choices at midnight? You guessed it, frozen pizza. But have you ever stopped mid-bite and thought about where it even came from? Believe it or not, this humble, cheesy masterpiece has a history as rich as its tomato sauce. So, grab a slice and let's take a trip through time to uncover the story behind one of the greatest food inventions ever. Trust me, this one's worth defrosting. Pizza origin before they had a reason to freeze them. All right, let's take a flavorful journey back in time. Imagine ancient civilizations, long before the convenience of delivery apps or even brick ovens.
Oh boy, La Pizzeria frozen pizza!
Oh, La Pizzeria! Just to sink a tooth into you. The sauce, the cheese.
Hungry folks back then had to get creative. They'd take simple dough, flatten it out, and bake it on hot stones or shields. This wasn't just any bread. It was the precursor to what we now know as pizza. In the 6th century BC, Persian soldiers under Darius the Great baked flatbreads with cheese and dates on their battle shields, a practice that sounds oddly like an ancient pizza party. Fast forward to the 18th century in Naples, Italy. The city was bustling, and its inhabitants, especially the working class, needed affordable and satisfying meals. Enter the modern pizza. Neapolitans began topping their flatbreads with tomatoes, cheese, oil, anchovies, and garlic, creating a dish that was both delicious and practical. These early pizzas were sold from open-air stands and out of pizza bakeries until about 1930s, when pizzerias in Naples started to have rooms with tables where clients could sit and enjoy their meals. Now, here's where things get interesting. A popular legend suggests that in 1889, to honor the visiting Queen Margherita of Savoy, Neapolitan pizzaiolo Raffaele Esposito crafted a special pizza. He used tomatoes, mozzarella, and basil to represent the red, white, and green of the Italian flag. The Queen was so impressed that this combination became known as Pizza Margherita. However, later research cast doubt on this legend, suggesting that both the story and the name Margherita were first promoted in the 1930s to the 1940s. As time went on, pizza's popularity began to spread beyond Naples. Italian immigrants carried their culinary traditions to new shores, particularly the United States. In 1905, Gennaro Lombardi, an Italian immigrant, opened America's first pizzeria in New York City. Initially a grocery store, Lombardi's began selling pizzas, introducing the delightful dish to a broader audience. This move sparked a wave of pizzerias opening across the East Coast, each adding its unique twist to the classic Neapolitan pie. But here's the thing. This was all fresh pizza. You ordered it, they made it, you ate it. No freezing, no preservatives, no tossing a box in the oven for 15 minutes. That part of the story? Well, we weren't quite there yet. For pizza to make the leap from fresh to frozen, we needed a game-changing invention: the Freon. The introduction of Freon. Not everyone had the privilege of experiencing the very first wave of pizza. Back in the day, if you were lucky enough to have pizza at all, it was usually homemade or from a pizzeria you visited. However, something crucial happened in 1928 that would pave the way for the frozen pizza revolution: the invention of Freon. Two motor engineers, Thomas Midgley Jr. and Charles F. Kettering, invented this chemical compound, which eventually led to the development of the modern refrigerator. Before this, perishables were a bit of a logistical nightmare. People would store food in ice boxes, using blocks of ice to keep things cool. The problem? Ice didn't last forever, and it wasn't the most reliable way to keep food fresh. But once Freon came into the picture, refrigerators became more efficient and widespread. Homes across America were able to keep their food fresher for longer, and that's when people started getting more creative with their cooking, including thinking about how they could store and prepare pizza at home. The idea of a ready-to-bake pizza really took off after refrigerators became a common household appliance. With the ability to keep food fresh for longer, the thought of having a pizza that was pre-made and ready to cook at home was suddenly a reality. Fast forward a bit, and in the 1950s, the New York Times published an article about a pizzeria in Boston that sold pizzas ready to be baked at home. Soon New York followed suit, and before long, the idea of home-cooked, ready-to-bake pizzas became more than just a novelty. It was an idea whose time had come. Joseph Bucci, a Philadelphia pizzeria owner, saw the future of pizza in a way others hadn't yet realized. On August 10, 1950, Bucci filed a patent for a method to make frozen pizza. His innovation was significant. He figured out a way to freeze the pizza without compromising the flavor or texture. This was groundbreaking because the pizza had to be just as delicious after freezing as it was when freshly made. His patented technique helped pave the way for what would become the massive frozen pizza industry. This shift marked a key turning point, not just for pizza, but for how we viewed convenience food in general. With the introduction of refrigeration and Bucci's method for freezing pizza, an entire new category of meal preparation emerged. People could now enjoy the comfort of pizza without waiting for delivery or taking the time to make it from scratch. Thanks to advancements in refrigeration and the work of people like Joseph Bucci, frozen pizza began to make its way into grocery stores, forever changing the way Americans, and eventually the world, ate pizza. With frozen pizza now a reality, the next step was getting it into homes everywhere. And that's where the early mass-produced frozen pizza era kicked off. The early mass-produced frozen pizza era. It all starts with a guy named Jack DeLuca, an unassuming hero from East Cleveland, Ohio. In the early 1950s, he wasn't just another guy slinging pizzas. He was perfecting the art of freezing them. Jack wasn't exactly working at your typical pizza joint. He was thinking ahead. He knew the future wasn't just about making pizzas. It was about making them last. And not just in the fridge, but in the freezer. And so, in 1952, Jack DeLuca was selling over $20,000 worth of frozen pizzas every week. Imagine that. He was basically the Elon Musk of frozen food, paving the way for the pizza revolution we know today. But Jack wasn't alone in this freezing frenzy. Around the same time, over on the West Coast, a guy named Alan was driving pizzas for Domino's. Yeah, he was the delivery driver before he became the founder of a little empire we all know now. Alan had his own take on what frozen pizza could be, and soon enough, frozen pizza became a staple for late-night cravings and busy families alike. Meanwhile, Rose and Jim Totino were over in Minneapolis working their magic. The Totinos were another key player in this pizza revolution, and they weren't just about regular old pizza. Oh no, they were thinking big. They had a machine that could pump out hundreds of pizzas per hour. This wasn't just a pizza shop, it was a pizza factory. So by the time the 1970s rolled around, Totino's had become one of America's top frozen pizza brands, and they sold their company to Pillsbury for a cool $22 million. Yeah, you read that right. $22 million. Who knew frozen pizza could be so lucrative? And as the 70s heated up, pizza companies like Schwan, Tony's, and Red Baron jumped into the frozen pizza game. It was becoming clear that frozen pizza was no longer a niche thing for a select few. It was everywhere, from your local grocery store to every freezer in America. People were eating it up, literally and figuratively. But wait, let's not forget about Tombstone Pizza, the little brand that could. It wasn't created by a big corporation, but by a pair of brothers, Pep and Ron Simek. These guys were just doing their thing, making pizzas the way they knew how until they hit it big. Eventually, Tombstone was sold to Kraft, and boom! It became the third most popular frozen pizza in the country. Who would have thought that two brothers in a small town could end up competing with the big dogs? Frozen pizza, in all its cheesy glory, has evolved with time. It went from something you could only find in a niche market to becoming a billion-dollar industry. From DeLuca's 20 grand a week in Ohio to Totino's deal with Pillsbury, frozen pizza became a staple, not just in homes across America, but all around the world. And honestly, can you blame people? Frozen pizza's got that mix of comfort, convenience, and, let's face it, it's a lifetime of memories. And just when you thought things couldn't get crazier, we hit a little bump in the road in the frozen pizza timeline. I'm talking about the time when frozen pizza got held up by the feds. Frozen pizza gets held up by the feds. Believe it or not, frozen pizza in the 70s got caught up in politics. Yeah, frozen pizza became a bit of a hot topic, and not in the fun way you might think. You see, back then, frozen pizza was actually heavily regulated by the government. And no, we're not talking about regulations on how to make a better pizza. Oh no, this had everything to do with the cheese. Now, let's rewind for a second. Wisconsin, which as you might know is kind of the cheese capital of the US, was cranking out an insane amount of cheese. And in the 1970s, the US Department of Agriculture, USDA, found itself spending around $3 billion a year to buy up all this surplus cheese from Wisconsin's factories. Sounds crazy, right? They needed a place to put all that cheese, and that's where frozen pizzas started coming in. So here's where things get spicy. The USDA decided that frozen pizzas needed some guidelines on how much real cheese they could have on them. It wasn't just a random decision. The government wanted to make sure the pizzas weren't overloaded with cheese, which was seen as, well, unhealthy. So they came up with this regulation that frozen pizzas could only have 12% real cheese. Can you believe that? Just 12%. So if you were grabbing a frozen pizza back in the day, you were really just getting a tiny sprinkle of real cheese, and the rest was probably a mix of who knows what. Now imagine that. You've got this pizza, and the cheese is just not all it's cracked up to be. It's mostly just filler, with a bit of actual cheese thrown in. Not exactly the gooey, cheesy pizza we dream about today, huh? And on top of that, people weren't too happy about the government regulating their cheese consumption. It felt like the government was stepping into something personal. Like they were telling you what you could and couldn't eat, and that didn't sit well with everyone. The backlash was real. People didn't want the government to tell them how much cheese they should be eating, and there were some serious concerns about the rising cost of these pizzas. Because the USDA was spending so much on cheese, pizza manufacturers had to play by these rules, and it wasn't cheap to keep the cheese content low. So, prices on frozen pizzas started creeping up, and that didn't sit too well with people who were just looking for a cheap, tasty meal. After all, what's the point of frozen pizza if it's as expensive as a freshly made pizza? But guess what? By the 1980s, the USDA's cheese regulations slowly started to fade away. This was a game changer. Without the strict 12% rule hanging over them, frozen pizza manufacturers were free to get a little more creative. They could load up their pizzas with more cheese, and that's exactly what they did. Suddenly, frozen pizzas didn't taste like cardboard with a sprinkle of cheese. They became, well, a whole lot better. And here's the thing. Frozen pizza was just plain boring before all this. I mean, let's be real. Before the 1980s, frozen pizza wasn't anything to get excited about. The sauce wasn't all that flavorful, the toppings were basic, and the crust was often dry and chewy in the worst way. It was just there. People ate it because it was convenient, but it wasn't something you looked forward to. There was no flavor explosion. It was like a pizza from the land of meh. But once those cheese regulations eased up, pizza makers could finally get a little wild. More cheese, better cheese, and more creative combos. You could get pizzas with multiple types of cheese, exotic meats, and loads of toppings. The pizza was no longer the afterthought of the freezer aisle. It was a legit meal. It became something people actually got excited about. The frozen pizza of the 80s was the beginning of a whole new era. It was the moment frozen pizza went from being a sad, bland option to a delicious go-to meal for families everywhere. Let's talk a little more about that shift. When the government backed off from regulating how much cheese could be on your frozen pizza, manufacturers could start using higher quality cheeses. Think about it. Mozzarella and cheddar blended together to make that perfect melty cheese combo that we all crave today. It wasn't just about putting something on top of the pizza anymore. It was about making that cheese stretch and melt in the most satisfying way. And let's not forget about the sauces. With fewer restrictions, companies started experimenting with different types of sauces, from classic tomato to creamy white sauce, and even barbecue sauce in some cases. Frozen pizza was evolving, and it was finally starting to taste like something you'd want to eat more than once. As frozen pizza became more exciting, its popularity surged. It wasn't just something to grab when you were too tired to cook. It became a real meal, one that people could enjoy anytime. The 80s marked the golden age of frozen pizza, and what we have today, those delicious, cheesy, loaded pizzas, is thanks to the changes that happened back then. But here's the kicker. It wasn't just about better ingredients or creative toppings. It was about the freedom manufacturers had to innovate. The government's decision to back off opened the door for all kinds of possibilities. Frozen pizza companies could now experiment with all kinds of flavors, and that's when we started seeing those funky, over-the-top pizzas that we love today. From deep dish to thin crust, from veggie-loaded to meat lovers, frozen pizza had officially leveled up. And let's not forget the nostalgia factor. Frozen pizza wasn't just food, it was part of the culture. It was a quick dinner for busy families, a meal for movie nights, and even the perfect snack after a late-night study session. It was something that brought people together, whether you were sharing a pizza with friends or just enjoying it by yourself. It was a simple pleasure, but one that packed a punch when it came to comfort. By the time the 1980s rolled around, frozen pizza had truly arrived. It was no longer just an afterthought in the freezer aisle. It was the meal of choice for so many people. The cheesy, flavorful, topped-to-the-brim pizzas we know and love today wouldn't exist without the change in regulations. And it's crazy to think that something as simple as government regulations on cheese helped shape the future of frozen pizza. So, there you have it. Frozen pizza went from boring, basic meals to the stuff of legends, all thanks to some government intervention, consumer pushback, and a little bit of cheese. And don't worry. We'll dive deeper into the evolution of frozen pizza in the 80s in the next section. Frozen Pizza 2.0. All right, picture this. It's a cozy evening, you've got the TV on, and the hunger kicks in. But you're not in the mood to order pizza or spend ages making something from scratch. Nope, you want that quick, cheesy, crispy goodness that only frozen pizza can offer. But here's the thing. Frozen pizza as we know it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It went through some serious twists and turns to become the convenience we love today. Let's rewind to the 80s for a sec, when Stouffer's Pizza made waves with its now famous French bread pizza. It was a game changer, right? But here's where the plot thickens. Rumor has it that Stouffer's didn't exactly come up with this genius idea all on their own. Word on the street is that they actually borrowed it from a guy named Bob Petrillos. Back in the 70s, Bob wasn't in some big corporate kitchen. He was just a dude selling French bread pizzas from his truck. Picture that for a second. A guy with a food truck, slinging hot, cheesy pizza on French bread, making sure you got the kind of snack that would change your life. That's how you know a good idea, when it's so simple yet so revolutionary that it practically sells itself. Now, we all know how quickly things can snowball in the world of food, and in 1983, Paul and David Mirage took frozen food to the next level with their creation: Hot Pockets. Think about it. Hot Pockets were like the unofficial snack of every 90s kid. If you didn't have one of those in your freezer, were you even living your best life? Hot Pockets were the perfect combo of convenience and comfort, stuffing all kinds of flavors into a little pastry pocket that could go straight from the freezer to the microwave in minutes. Whether it was ham and cheese or pepperoni pizza, those little pockets became the go-to for hungry teens and busy adults alike. But as with most things in life, the evolution didn't stop there. Jump forward a couple of years, and we're introduced to another legend: Bagel Bites. In 1985, Bob Mosher and Stan Garsinski decided to take everyone's love of mini pizzas and combine it with a bagel, because why not, right? It was pure genius. These little bites were the ultimate snack for kids under 16. Honestly, who didn't grab a few bagel bites to throw in the microwave while you were hanging out with your friends, or maybe while you were avoiding homework? Seriously, it was like the unofficial food of every teenage hangout, a snack that fit perfectly into the after-school vibe. And let's be honest, those mini pizzas on bagels, they hit the spot every time. And here's the thing. While the innovations were coming at us fast, the convenience wasn't stopping anytime soon. Enter Pillsbury with their next-level move: the microwavable cardboard plate for pizza. Yeah, you heard that right. It might sound like something out of a weird sci-fi movie, but this clever little invention was a game changer. You know how when you microwave pizza, the crust can end up a soggy mess? Well, this little plate made sure that wouldn't happen. It helped keep the crust crispy while heating the rest of the pizza to perfection. Sure, it didn't replicate the oven experience, but when you're hungry and in a rush, it was the next best thing. But let's pause for a second and talk about how all of these innovations led us to the frozen pizza world we know today. It's not just about the food. It's about the memories and the culture that these little frozen wonders have helped create. From Bob Petrolos's truck pizza to the Hot Pockets and Bagel Bites in our freezers, frozen pizza has been a part of the fabric of our lives for decades. It's a symbol of convenience, sure, but it's also a symbol of how food has evolved in ways we never saw coming. We've all had those days when we just can't be bothered to cook a full meal. The beauty of frozen pizza is that it's always there for you. But let's talk about why it works. Why did French bread pizza from a truck become a full-on revolution in the frozen food aisle? The answer is simple. It was a meal that was affordable, easy to eat, and just plain good. Stuffers saw that potential and capitalized on it. They didn't just make pizza, they made a lifestyle. And the same goes for Hot Pockets and Bagel Bites. They weren't just food. They were a quick fix for the busy, hungry people who didn't have time for a sit-down meal but still wanted something satisfying. It's not just about convenience either. It's about the nostalgia. Think about it. You're sitting at home after a long day and you toss a frozen pizza in the oven. That smell starts wafting through the air. Warm cheese, pepperoni, that golden brown crust. You can almost taste it before you even take your first bite. And it hits you. This is comfort food at its finest. You might not even realize it, but you're reliving all those late-night snacks from your younger years, those spontaneous pizza parties, or the times when you just didn't want to cook but needed to eat something that felt like a hug. Frozen pizza, in all its forms, has become a part of our culture. It's not just a meal, it's a memory in the making. Think back to those moments when you were a kid, running around outside all day and then coming into a quick, easy pizza dinner. Maybe it was the Stuffers pizza your mom threw in the oven, or maybe it was Hot Pockets that you ate straight out of the microwave. But it didn't matter. It was perfect for the moment, and that's what made it so memorable. What's amazing is how these innovations didn't just change the frozen food aisle. They changed the way we think about food. They made eating something fast and easy an experience. Hot Pockets weren't just about the filling. They were about the feeling you got when you pulled them out of the microwave. Bagel Bites weren't just mini pizzas. They were a symbol of independence. After all, you didn't need a pizza cutter to enjoy them. And Stuffers Pizza? That French bread pizza opened a whole new chapter for frozen food. So, where does that leave us today? Well, it leaves us with an entire world of frozen food that continues to evolve. From pizza to microwavable meals, we're in an age where convenience meets comfort, and it all started with these early pioneers of frozen pizza. Whether it's that first bite of Hot Pockets or the crispy edge of a Stuffers pizza, we're part of a long tradition of people who just wanted something good, quick, and easy to eat. As for the future, who knows what's next? But one thing's for sure, frozen pizza will always be there for us. And next time you pop one in the microwave, just think about the legends who made it all happen. From Bob Petrolos's truck to Hot Pockets, Bagel Bites, and those genius Pillsbury plates, frozen pizza is here to stay. But none of this would have been possible without one invention that really rocked the pizza world, the game changer that took things to the next level. The invention that rocked the industry. In 1995, something happened that would change the frozen pizza game forever. Enter DiGiorno. Suddenly, frozen pizza wasn't just a sad, last-minute dinner option. DiGiorno came out with its original rising crust pizza, and the world was never the same. The crust rose while baking, giving it that fluffy, golden texture that actually made it feel like a fresh-baked pizza. And, to top it off, the pizza was so good that people started to think it had some real Italian roots. But nope, it was actually created by Kraft Foods, the same company behind Kraft Mac and Cheese. Iconic, right? But here's where it gets crazy. Within just 1 year, DiGiorno became the best-selling frozen pizza in the world. Like, how does a pizza pull that off? Simple. It wasn't just about the pizza itself. It was about how they marketed it. The slogan, "It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno," became a household catchphrase. Suddenly, DiGiorno wasn't just a frozen pizza. It was a pizza you could enjoy at home, with no delivery fee, and it actually tasted like something you'd get from a pizzeria. Now let's talk about how this all changed the game. Before DiGiorno, frozen pizza was seen as the sad alternative to ordering from a real pizza place. You know, the kind you only eat when you're too tired or lazy to go out. But DiGiorno made frozen pizza feel like a real option. It didn't just taste better, it looked better, and it made us think that frozen pizza could actually be a good choice. DiGiorno set the bar so high that other brands had to step up their game. They started offering more crust options: stuffed crust, crispy pan, croissant crust, you name it. And let's not forget about the sheer convenience. With DiGiorno, you could have a hot, fresh pizza without waiting 30 minutes for delivery. You're at home, you're comfortable, and you've got a pizza that actually tastes good. So yeah, DiGiorno wasn't just a pizza, it was a game changer. It made us rethink what frozen food could be. And here we are, decades later, still enjoying that rising crust. All thanks to an invention that rocked the industry. And there you have it. The history of frozen pizza, from the early days of bland crusts to DiGiorno changing the entire game. Who knew something as simple as a frozen pizza could have such a big impact? So, next time you pop one in the oven, you'll know exactly how far it's come. If you enjoyed this deep dive into frozen pizza history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let me know your favorite frozen pizza brand in the comments below. Are you Team Hot Pockets, Pizza Bagels, or DiGiorno? Until next time, keep your pizza game strong.